that I realized this is how I learned to let go of all the things that are in the way of my being center. We know I can breathe, I can step outside, I can hum this song, I can repeat my document. There's things we can do that bring us right back to center. Leaders and coaches coaching coaches and things like that, they're out in the business world and they're speaking this language and they're using these concepts and they're helping so many people because I thought it was spirituality, and it's not. It's life living itself.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining us on the show Moments with Masters, and welcome to my show.
Thank you, Ranjan. I'm so happy to be here.
Fantastic. I'm excited for this conversation, but before we dive into the conversation, I would love to introduce you to our viewers. Elizabeth Cantey is dedicated to helping people integrate spirit, mind, and body in order to live each day with a deep sense of purpose, passion, and fulfillment. She has found a simple and direct path to turn within and become reconnected with spirit or source and integrate this knowing with our mind and body. Well, she believes that when we do this, we become present to the infinite joys of life, whether we are picking up kids from school, walking the dog, or scheduling our next sales call. She is an ordained minister with the Centers for Spiritual Living and has a doctorate in consciousness studies. Her new book entitled Living Enlightened, The Joy of Integrating Spirit, Mind and Body is available on Amazon. She also explores these principles and practices in her podcast, Living Enlightened, which is on YouTube as well as all your favorite podcast outlets. Well, you can access her website from the description where we'll be posting the link to her website. Welcome to Moments with Masters, and you are the master of the day, Elizabeth Cantey.
I love it. Yes, I am. Okay, I'll take it.
Fantastic. Elizabeth, my first question to understand your journey, like how did your journey in consciousness studies lead you to become an ordained minister with the Centers for Spiritual Living?
Wow. Okay. So, when I went to Catholic grade school and high school, and when I was in grade school, this memory just recently came up for me, but I loved Sundays, and the my mom would take us to the church, and of course in Catholic school we had to go to mass during the week as well, and watching the priests up on the altar and reading from the book, and they're up on the platform and they're feel it, to me it was just watching someone talk to God and read about God and speak about God, and I knew that I really wanted that. And when I was in 8th grade, they had the high schoolers come from Catholic high school to come and talk to us, and so we would have like a buddy when we got to the new school. And we sat around in little groups, and this girl asked everyone, what do they want to be when they grow up? And I said, a priest. And I knew that I wasn't going to be a priest, but that's what I wanted. That was the idea. If I could do that, talk to God, read from the holy book, understand what it was saying, be close to Jesus, that just meant so much to me. And of course they said, you mean a nun? You want to be a nun? And I was like, no, I don't. I do not. I want to be that guy up there, knowing the truth. And so in high school, I did what normal high schoolers did. I knew I wasn't going to be a priest, so I just got busy being in high school, and as a young adult, I really got busy being the crazy young adult, going to college and traveling. And I kind of forgot about that. It was always in the background. It was always nagging me that I had no sense of connection with that God that felt very, very far away from me. And I was taught that God was way up there, way out there. And so I just pushed that all aside until I got cancer. I was diagnosed with cancer around 24, 25. And, it just occurred to me, like getting hit on the head, it occurred to me that I should know something about life before I died. I should know something about why I am here, who I am, what is it all about before my life ended. And here I am with cervical cancer. And I was moving to Los Angeles, and someone, just synchronistic events led me to the Bodhi Tree bookstore. I decided not to have, it was stage 2 cancer. I wasn't going to have surgery. I just needed a little bit more time to assimilate the information. Remember, there's no internet way back then.
Yeah.
Internet or anything. So I'm going to the bookstore, and I leave that bookstore with Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, and Shakti Gawain's book, Creative
Creative visualization.
Yes. So 2 of the best books that you can
Yes.
really read to start this process of transformation. And it was one thing after another. Someone saw Louise Hay's book on my countertop. And my cancer went from stage 2, by the way, to stage 1. I learned to meditate. I learned to visualize. And no one could tell me, even the doctors couldn't tell me how in such a short time my cancer went from stage 2 to stage 1. What part of that healing and transformation was due to the meditation and the readings and the visualization and this new understanding. But I knew it was a part of it for sure. And I had surgery, stage 1, and I've been cancer-free ever since. And that just led to the series of events. I saw Louise Hay's book on my coffee table and said, "Oh, you're into this stuff? There's a meditation group right down the street from us." And she had never been, and so I went, and that's how I found Reverend Michael Beckwith's church, Agape. And I started, as soon as I heard what they were saying, and it was that God was not up there, out there, God is everywhere all the time, everything, but within. And, the kingdom of heaven is within, and it's right now. And the way they were saying it, I was at home, and I started taking classes immediately. And I knew from the day I walked in there, I was going to be a minister. So now I'm on this path of being the priest, the minister. But instead of God being infinitely far away from me, I know that God is who and what I am, and every single thing, everywhere, all the time. It's in each and every one of us. And we can call it Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, your Krishna consciousness, your Ayen is the Kabbalah consciousness, and every tradition has it. Life, God, spirit.
Well, that was so powerful, Elizabeth. This reminds me about an experience that I had in 1997, and I had my own near-death experience, and you can call it awakening or enlightenment, and I was exposed to life beyond this physical dimension. And I can tell you, like, when you said, when you were talking of Shakti Gawain, creative visualization, the reason I remember, because I was also reading the same books, and and probably again serendipity or coincidence, and I was going through such phase, and I was exposed to Swami Vivekananda, and I renounced my family to turn a monk in Sri Ramakrishna Math, Hyderabad. And I also had the same desire to become like Vivekananda, and that attracted me a lot. And that is exactly when I started readings of works of Swami Vivekananda, and also books by these new age gurus. And that's when I also got introduced to Shakti Gawain's work. And I know, I mean, because that helped me really in those 2 3 years to completely transform myself, and to direct me towards the result that I wanted to create. Uh, so how did this work, which you started through this, and your own healing and your own passion to, well, how did it actually transform into this passion to integrate spirit, mind, and body? And how did it impact your personal as well as professional lives?
Mm. But you know what you were just speaking about for you, when I read You Can Heal Your Life, when I meditated and I used creative visualization, I didn't know anything about meditation growing up Catholic and at that stage of my life. But I was starting to realize that as I meditated, there was information or an experience of knowing that came to me, that I was resting in, that was more real than anything out there, than than my body, than my skin, than the food or my feet on the floor. There was like another realm.
Mm,
It's very hard to explain, but it was more real, that everything and everyone were all connected. I had so many moments that I was connected, and the only way to really describe it in words is by light. It was like light. Every molecule in my body or myself was connected to every molecule everywhere, and it was just like, and yet I was still there. I didn't disappear. I just wasn't this. I wasn't this face and this body. And so that is itself, it's information that we don't get in school or from our parents if they weren't, experiencing this. And I had to find people and situations and communities where people understood that and could talk about that, because I knew that that is the only way I could live, in this world and not of it. And
mm,
it changed everything. I used to say, I still do now, but that I am like the happiest person I know. And it's not because I have the most money, or that I have the most information, or that I'm the most creative or talented or nothing. It's because my happiness didn't depend on what was happening out there. It didn't depend on if I got the job or didn't get the job, or if I lost a friend, somebody who didn't, just decided they didn't like me, or I didn't fit into this group, or whatever it was. It was like, oh, I can be okay with that. And I would watch other people as they would get upset. They're they're resisting what is. And I didn't know anything about Buddhism at the time until I started studying comparative religions to get my master's degree. And now I started looking at what Buddha said, and what, the Bhagavad Gita and all the different traditions, and Kabbalah and the mystic traditions and Sufism. And I'm realizing they're all saying this, that there is another way of living in the world and not of it. And from that place, we are already the peace and the love and the joy and the power and the creative expression of spirit. We're already it. So when we open that dimension, when we're not resisting out there, when we're opening here, then instead of being subject to all the events and all the activities, now we're expressing, we're giving, we're releasing love and peace and joy into the world. And then we're seeing from that and allowing that to express back to us. So that cycle, I call it, like a creative cycle, of course, shifts our life so much. It shifts our life as a parent, as with our parents, with our job. You cannot help but be in a job when you are loving life, and whatever that creative expression is, that is the job, whether it's sales or organization or managing or marketing, any aspect. It's like there's something, again, it's from within that we release. We don't look for joy in the job. We don't look for happiness in the job. We don't look for satisfaction in the job. We have that within and we give it. And then that allows the people that we're working with or associating with, they just look at you like, wow, you're really grounded, or you're really organized, or you're really happy. And you're like, yeah, I am. And let's get this done. Standing in our power that comes from within and not from without. So that's changed every area of my life and allowed me to feel connected to everyone, but mostly that idea of connection with source, all that there is. Did that answer your question?
Perfect. The last thing that I heard from my guru, Swami Ranganathananda, was that, he said, Ranjan, if you remember this one principle, this would be enough to help you create a conscious life for yourself. And he said, like, the same thing which you said, like, be like a boat on the water, but do not let the water be in the boat. And if you can, but this is what is the entire essence of Bhagavad Gita, and the detached presence, the detached creation. And this is one of my declarations where I, in my document of being, that I am cosmic presence. And yes, yesterday I was sharing this insight with a client of mine who was talking about a certain situation in his life, and spontaneously I got this, and I said that, what if, let's imagine that you are a scientist, and you have everything in your head, but you don't get a laboratory to even explore whether what you know is right or not, whether it works or not. So any scientist would need a laboratory to make experiments, to explore what's in him. And that's how life presents us these external situations, which help us express more of who we actually are. And we get to become more of who we are with these situations and circumstances around. In fact, they are facilitating our transformation and helping us awaken those innate capacities that we were actually born with and we forgot in our journey. So Elizabeth, So Elizabeth, I would love to listen about your book. What inspired you to write this book, and your journey in the creation of the book, and any practice or principle that you would love to share with us from your book?
Well, I love to say that, and I know you'll understand this, that I didn't write the book because it was it was all the things that were kind of coming to me, and I felt like it was really downloaded. It was information I would have to grab and start typing, or wherever I was, start writing, because it was just coming to me. And a lot of it came in really just paragraphs or pages. And it shifted. A lot of it came as a meditation experience, like the one that I described, that where I just was light everywhere. I just dissolved, and it was light everywhere. So a lot of them were things like that, where I would just be, something was happening to me, the consciousness expanding, going everywhere in the world, literally this world, this world, and I would be drawn to people, and I would see them in these dire situations. And what was really interesting is they could feel me, and I could see them. My consciousness was with them, and I was loving them and blessing them. I might get emotional as I say it, but it became a practice for me to be, to just be, where is my consciousness drawn to? And I would be loving a woman who was with her child who was dying. And it was like, oh my gosh, she thinks like I'm an angel, because she can't see me, but she's surrounded by love and she can feel me. And it's this idea of so consciousness being, and love being drawn to where it's needed. But that experience led me to, like a chapter in the book. And then I described that meditation experience at the end of that chapter. So a lot of them were sort of these experiences that happened, and then I put words to it. And then I found sort of I don't know what you want to call it, a through line, that I realized this is how I learned to let go of all the things that are in the way of my being the truth, and standing in the truth, and resting in the truth. And it wasn't going to be a book. It was actually a workshop at first. And then my son was going through a really hard time in high school, and he was experiencing a lot of mental and emotional and physical illness. He's almost 21 now, and he's doing great. He's very happy. But even though he grew up with these principles and practices, as he grew into a teenager and young adult, he didn't want to listen to his mom. Shocking, I know, like a teenager that doesn't want to take advice from his mom. So I began to question, what could I present to him? What would I want him to know about life that he won't get taught? He's not listening to me, but he's not going to get taught, in university and high school and through most of his friends. What do I want him to know about reality with a capital R, and that legacy? And that's really how the book, I just felt like I had to pull it together. And it was inspired in this order of how I learned to let go of what is no longer serving me, what's not important, what is really important. Like I said, what is the truth that's beyond this visceral reality? And so that's how the book was born. And the dedication in the book is to my son Max. But because it was written for him, I think it's very easy. It's very simple. It's not new information. It's from that perennial wisdom that is in every mystic tradition. However, I do hope it's put in a form that is just simple and easy. And I really wanted to, without knowing it at the time, demystify that word enlightened. I wanted to make it accessible. I wanted people to realize that living enlightened for me It simply means being right where you are, doing exactly what you're doing, being with whoever you are with, and sensing and knowing good or God or spirit in it. So it's not exotic. It's not unusual. It's not something we attain. It's actually releasing that which is not our true nature. So that's what the book is about. It's about how I learned to release. First, the first chapter that gets into it is releasing my ideas of God. My ideas of God were a man literally up in the sky with the white beard, judging me, telling me, that I could go to hell or purgatory or heaven. Those, depending on all these things that I did. And so, really understanding judgment, understanding right thinking, understanding alignment, understanding surrender. So the book just kind of goes through my process of how I got to where I am, this very simple, direct understanding. And most of it, we experience it almost every single day, almost every one of us. And it's that beautiful moment right before we wake up in the morning or right when we go to sleep. Right when we go to sleep, we decide, I'm done. The body's going to rest now. And then the mind gives up and our head sinks into the pillow. And it's that moment of, that's an enlightened moment. The mind is quiet, the body is present, we're completely relaxed, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing happening. And it's peace. That's the peace that passes understanding. When we realize we can bring that into every moment,
Yes.
that's amazing.
Yes. There were a number of times when in my life, over a dozen times, when I had to start my life from scratch. And I remember, like, every time I would learn more about myself, learn more about how life functions, learn more about the context in which I was creating things. And I remember, like, I was talking to my colleague, and I had written a small article, and I wanted her to listen to this article. And I said, ma'am, can you listen to this article that I wrote last night? And she listened to that. And I went back home the day, and that night I had another article that just flowed through me, and I put it on paper. The next day I was again excited. I went back to her and I said, like, ma'am, there is one more article that I've written. Can you listen to this? And I wanted to share this. And she heard, and then she said, like, well, sir, you have written two articles, and I see how passionate you are about sharing your message and your understanding. Why don't you write a book? And you won't believe, like, the day I decided, that moment I said, yes, let me write a whole book of what I am implementing, what I'm executing, what I'm learning in this process. But today, when somebody asks me about writing a book, I say that forget about the book. When you start writing, the process itself is so transformative that, if you surrender to that flow of that energy and the essence that flows through you, once you become a channel of that, it's like I had to have a diary and a pen right next to my bed. And I never knew, like, it would be sometimes 1 a.m., 2 a.m. when ideas started flowing, and I had to wake up and I had to start jotting down the entire paragraphs or the new ideas. And I remember that that process of creation, that process of when the universe starts sending you those messages and the words and what you really want to create, and you just start witnessing what's flowing through you. And that experience is so elevating. That experience is itself is so transformative that you become someone else. You become more of who you are, and you become the first person to experience what you are writing.
Yes. That's funny because the first person that experienced, it wasn't a book, it was an experience for me, and another one
Yes.
and another one. And it was so exciting to have that experience. I was journaling there. I had no intention of writing a book. And
Hmm.
as a matter of fact, it was my journal. And then I was asked to lead a workshop, to create and present a workshop. And I was like, well, well, okay, let me think about it. And I realized that all of these things that were so transformative for me might help other people. And that's became a workshop, and then it became the book.
Okay. Here's a question which again is related to your book, since in your book, Living Enlightened, like you have, and yourself, like through your work and through your creations, you are someone who is dedicated to helping others find purpose and fulfillment. So what advice do you have for individuals who may be like struggling to connect with their sense of purpose?
Yeah, for me, uh, when I first start working with people, it's the idea of uh, being, taking the time to be still first. Most of us are caught up, and usually when we find ourselves really suffering, we're really separated from ourself. And so that first idea is really finding ourself. And for me, the one of the easiest ways is meditation, but not necessarily many people, if they've never done it before, it's not the sitting meditation that we see sometimes or we read about. I encourage people to find the place where they are the most themselves. So that might be walking on the beach or in the mountains, or it might be watching, their grandchild just play like a little toddler, a little, whatever that is in nature, or with music, or with, let's say they used to play an instrument in, as a child or in high school or something, or university, just pick up an instrument, whatever that is, to be back in touch with something that always felt like the most you. And then once that's sort of established a little bit, it's like the happiness that is within you, the joy that is already within you, there's a peace within you. And then we move into the idea that there's a power within you, there's presence, there's this guiding force. And it would come out as, what we might call values, so some words that would describe who your essence is, who you are in your core when you are the most yourself, like with the music or in nature. And then allowing that, the values, it's like we can just look at our lives, and where am I not living that value as a parent? Where am I not living that value in my work? And we start to be able to, again, we don't have to change anything in the outside world. We don't have to quit our job, or obviously we're not going to quit being a parent. It's like, but we can be right where we are doing exactly what we're doing, and allow that which is within us to guide that moment and to be present in that moment. And we'll see that the moment changes into alignment with who we know ourselves to be. So now we're shifting. And that's when you hear people say, what did you do? Did you go on vacation? Did you take a workshop? It's like, no, I'm just actually being me. I'm being more me than I've ever been before. So for me, those are like those first steps of being still and finding our true self, and kind of naming what that is in an I am statement, or a value, that how I want to live my life. Yeah.
I fully agree with you, and I love this, Elizabeth. When I talk about meditation with my clients, and those who know me for years, like they knew that I was doing a lot of meditation those days, those years, 25 years ago, and it was a practice like 3 hours, 4 hours, sometimes 5 hours a day. But now, like after 25 years, when people ask me like, what are you doing these days? And what form of a meditation or what kind of a meditation are you doing? And they look confused when I tell them that, now I just sit, and now the best form of meditation I do is just to be available. And that I found is, is it's just that. And I remember from Osho, who used to say there are 108 types of meditations. Every activity that you do is a meditation. And Steve Hardison, when he talks about what he does as a practice before he meets his clients, is like, even if he's talking to Amy, or he's doing something in the garden, or he's cleaning something, he's practicing being present. And
Yeah.
anything and everything that it does is a practice for presence. And anything and everything turns a meditation when you are fully available in the moment. And the moment you are fully available to yourself and to life, you actually are becoming more available to that microcosm inside, that microcosmic world inside, which is itself the source of this macrocosmic experience that we are experiencing on the outside, and think that this is outside in, forgetting that we are the source. And this is where we are projecting the life from. Thank you so much for sharing that. And well, how do you approach the idea of spirituality in a way that is accessible and applicable to people in their everyday lives, Elizabeth?
Well, you actually just described that, Ranjan. It would be bringing, that simple sense of self. Like if someone had started to realize that it was music, or that it was walks in nature. Well, obviously we can't be walking in nature. Most of us, I should say, can't be walking in nature while we're on a sales call or something like that. So, or, our kids are coming home from school, or whatever it is, taking care of our parents, our aging parents. It's like we're not out in nature. So it's teaching people that feeling, that openness is always available. It isn't going anywhere. We leave it. Like
Yes.
our mind goes off into these tangents of, I don't like this. This isn't good enough. I wish things were different. So the mind will start telling us that this presence, this source, this love, this power, this creative energy, this wisdom, the mind will say that's not there now, because the mind is going and going and going. So the practice is to come back to that while we're taking care of the parents, while we're, at the sales call, in the sales meeting. And if we have to step out or step away, go to the restroom, take the elevator, do something to breathe. And there are practices, of course, some breathing practices and things like that, that only take seconds. But once we've been practicing them like an athlete, once we've been including them in our daily routine, now when we're in the moment that is disturbing us, we can use that practice to bring us back to center. So we're living every day from this place that is more real than that mental activity. You know, I know you know this from spiritual studies, and it's just becoming very mainstream that it's never the event itself that is disturbing us. It's always the thoughts about the event that are disturbing us. So, you know, it could be, we have hurricanes here in North Florida, and that there's a hurricane or a nor'easter, a big storm, or it's just a stormy, crazy day. And the mind will just go, this is terrible. I can't do this. I'm not able to get this done. Or why is it raining on my only day off? I mean, now we're miserable, but the rain is just being the rain. You know, that
Yes.
person who is miserable is just being themselves. They're just being miserable. It's not yours. You
Yes.
don't have to take it. But if we comment on it, if we keep our mind focused on it, then we are miserable. We are taking part in that. But we can just, they can be miserable if they're having that bad day, and we can be sourced by spirit. And more often than not that that's the point, but more often than not, our sense of self either calms that person, or it creates a barrier so that they're not affecting us. And so it's really learning to be centered. As you said, it's like bringing meditation into everything, because I say in my book somewhere that meditation isn't something we do. It looks
Mm.
like practice for a long time, but it's who we are. It's really presence, being in presence. And so now we're in presence in everything, almost everything. And when we're not,
Yes.
when we get pulled off center, we know I can breathe, I can step outside, I can hum this song, I can repeat my document. You know, there's things we can do that bring us right back to center.
Absolutely. Uh, this reminds me, uh, when we get trapped in our own thinking and we get lost into this world on the outside, and interpreting it outside in, it's like, this reminds me that, from our conversations, that I wrote a book. It was such a wonderful creation, and then I forgot that I wrote a book. And it was like, after a few years, when I read somebody's book, that reminds me of my own book. And I was like, how could I forget the book that I wrote myself? And that's how powerful this illusion of outside in is. You get trapped in your own thinking, and I was trapped in my own thinking and I was not owning the value of my own creation. And that jolted me back into that inside out life. And today, what I realize is that we as human beings, we are meaning making machines. We keep
Oh,
making meaning of everything. And we don't function like a camera. We function like a projector. We project the meaning. And the events, as you said, are happening, but the events do not have any meaning. They're just happening, and we project the meaning. We are the creators of the meaning. And we forget that what we experience is a result of our own interpretation, which again is again connected to our own intention, and which again depends, as you say, on who we are being in the moment. And that if we are the source, it's like we getting trapped in our own illusion of an outside in experience.
yes. And it's so powerful. And when we see people that are, and I love that word, when they're trapped in the illusion, you know, and we're standing over here going, you can get out, you know, you can be free.
Yes.
And it's really finding that for those people. And it's for me, it's usually very simple when someone is willing. You know, when we're willing to step outside that comfort zone of thinking. And that is when we can be still and know. and it just takes a few moments usually just to be still and know. And then if we give source that little, I don't know what the word is, that little opening, then source just goes, here you go.
Yes. Yes.
Here's what you need. Here's everything you need, all
Yes.
the information, all the people, all the resources, all the synchronistic events.
Yes. Just a little permission.
Yeah.
Just letting it do what it is supposed to do and what it wants to do.
Yes.
And in the words of Steve Harrison, just get out of your way.
Right. It's like, get out of your way, because
Yes.
spirit is who you really are. Like,
Yes.
it's trying to
Yes.
live its life as you. Just step out of the way a little bit, just move a little bit. And it's like, wow.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
so Elizabeth, as an ordained minister, what role do you see spirituality playing in fostering a sense of community and connection among individuals?
Well, it's interesting you ask me that at this time, Ranjan, because I am, I had that idea as a child that, that connection that I saw or thought a priest had, and I wanted that and became a minister. And I really thought that this teaching in this spiritual community of Centers for Spiritual Living would help so many people, and it does. We have 440 centers, and it's a beautiful tradition. It actually is the perennial wisdom of all the faiths, kind of distilled a little bit into the teachings of the Centers for Spiritual Living. But what I realize now is people are going away from spiritual community, churches, and we call ourselves centers, but it's like a church in many areas. And I am in that period of transition of finding other ways to help people, because it feels like people aren't coming into centers. They're not coming to spirituality. They're actually just kind of burning out, and I, in life, and they don't want what they think of, which is what I had, that concept of Catholicism or Christianity that they grew up with. So they don't want to go back to that. Of course, they've already decided that that doesn't work. So now I'm in this place of finding out how to be of service to more people. And guess who I found? All you guys. through really through Steve Hardison's work. It's amazing to me that someone who is, and so many people who are coaching business leaders and, coaches coaching coaches and things like that. They're out in the business world, and they're speaking this language, and they're using these concepts, and they're helping so many people, because I thought it was spirituality, and it's not. It's life living itself in
Yes.
every single area: parenting, relationships, businesses, entrepreneurial, artistry. If you're an artist, management, marketing, anything you can imagine is spiritual. It's all spiritual because it's all life, politics. And if we have people like all of you guys, the ultimate experience and these teachings going into every aspect of life, then people can turn in that aspect that they're most comfortable with. So it might not be spirituality, it might be parenting, it might be psychology, it might be marketing and management. It could be anything. But now we're all learning to step into source, being present. And more than anything in all of that is being present with each other without without the barrier of otherness, without the cultural barrier, without the color barrier, without the socioeconomic barrier, because now we're all the divine emanation of spirit, and we're all wanting a win-win. Whatever situation, whether it's parenting, whether it's business, whether it's marketing, when we look for a win-win, how can I serve? How can this person help me grow and expand? We're all in joy and in peace and in happiness without anything out there having to change. It's this that changes. Where we come from changes. And where we come from changes, then everything we see changes. And we are creating. We're not projecting, we're creating, you know? Mm.
Yes, Elizabeth, although the ultimate experience India was a tribute to my mother, there was one more reason that I created it was that you know, I'm sure you will agree that India has been a land of spiritual teachings and the essence of spirituality that India has always been the birthplace of. And I felt that in this modernization and westernization, what we got trapped into was that inferior understanding of how life functions and how business functions and how coaching functions or how training functions or how transformation business functions, and it all of a sudden it turned so strategy planning that we forgot about the essence of who we are being as experts, as leaders, as transformative coaches, or as catalysts of change. And this is exactly what the reason that I wanted to bring being movement to India. And it was such a beautiful experience to have business leaders, entrepreneurs, coaches, leaders, speakers, like Alok and Becky Robbins and Gary Moller and Steve Harrison and Ankush, and everybody talking the same language of listening, learning, and love.
Yes. Oh, I love that. The 3 L's: listening, learning, and love.
Yes, imagine when somebody as a business leader, imagine somebody as a top change catalyst, somebody as a change agent, and somebody as an entrepreneur, somebody as a coach and speaker, all coming from that authentic listening and that space to co-create magic with everybody else instead of thinking like a taker and what's in it for me. And imagine everybody comes from the same space of creation and togetherness and openness to listen, learn, and to receive love from others. Imagine the kind of life that we all will be co-creating for everybody on this planet. And that was one of the key reasons why I created the Ultimate Experience India. And and imagine the result with so many connections that we have today, and we are connected because of that, one way or the other.
Yes. Yes. And it's very inspirational. And that energy is how this teaching, so whether it's through this not just for spiritual living or through the ultimate experience or that book changed my life, The Ultimate Coach, which is called The Book of Being. I mean, it
Yes,
really should have been entitled that, and then
yes,
the subtitle should have been The Ultimate Coach, but I totally get it. But it is so wonderful to watch someone else's transformation, Steve Hardison's, his life story, and then how he has used these principles and more to transform so many others. And then you see and sense them transforming others and them transforming others, just like the work that you're doing in the Ultimate Experience India. And you're right. I can imagine that now. I can see it. I literally can see like that light energy that connects everything, this listening, learning, and love traveling through that light and affecting every single person on the planet. And it's beautiful. And it's how life is meant to be lived, without suffering and with support and love.
Absolutely. And if people still have doubts on, you know, the impact of what we do or create at a small level, in some part of the world, the very experience was an inspiration from Judy Thurston, who created Ultimate Experience in Arizona, which again inspired Matt Smith from London last year, who created the Ultimate Experience London, which inspired me in India to create the Ultimate Experience in India, and which is continuing to create ripples across the world. And
Yeah.
so this is call it evidence-based coaching, or kind of thing, but this is the evidence that anything and everything that you create definitely has an impact upon this entire universe.
Yes. And we have a vision at the Centers for Spiritual Living that I love, and part of that is co-creating a world that works for everyone, or a world in which everyone knows how it works. But what I like to say, for me, that to me is such a big vision. I don't know how to create a world that works for everyone, but I know that I have the tools and the information and the support to create a world that works for me. That I am in my center and in love, regardless of how life is showing up, whatever's happening in life. I can be loving it, loving myself and loving it. And that is the world that works for everyone. If I can do that, like you're saying, then I can help the person next to me, or my son, and he's standing in that for himself and the person next to him. And that is how we create this world, is through ourselves first, that self realization, really loving ourselves and having that support system that we have. Oh, I can see that. I see your
Yes.
vision.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the most powerful tool today, I believe, most powerful mantra that I believe, which everybody has access to, is the most powerful affirmation, the two-word affirmation, I am.
Yes.
If we
I
can,
am.
yes, if we can just be available to these two words, I am, and I say these two words, this two-word affirmation, declaration, is the key to all the mysteries of life for the universe
It
to
is.
unlock.
I agree with you. I agree with you. The great Ramana Maharshi was so instrumental in reminding us in that simple way of knowing who I am. And that is when we just allow that to be, the secret of the universe flows through us.
Yes, Elizabeth. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing your life, your understanding, and your creation with us. I invite all the viewers and watchers to get a copy of your book, to read it, to listen to the meaning, and to create from the space that you are. Thank you so much for being with us on this show, Moments with Masters. We loved it. We loved every bit of this conversation and every bit of your creation.
Thank you. And I did too. It's just, this is a magical moment, and I am so grateful, just resting in gratitude. for all of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Namaste from India.
Namaste.